you hear me? Wow, I've never spoken to such a big room of strangers before, and I'm actually really nervous and uncomfortable. But I luckily had a little bit of foresight to anticipate this moment, and so I came up with a way to make myself feel better by making all of you equally uncomfortable. So if you'd indulge me for a second, I'd like each person in the room here to find a stranger that they didn't come with and make eye contact right now, while I count to 10. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, how'd that feel? I feel a lot better, so thank you very much. So I'm not from here. I'm a transplant to New Orleans. I moved here 3 years ago. And after spending 2 years in a beautiful bubble of other artistic, coffee-addicted, college-educated transplants like myself, I decided it would be beneficial to learn a little bit more about my city by engaging with a broader spectrum of the people within it. So 1 year ago tomorrow, actually, I threw caution to the wind, as well as advice from this article from The Onion that it's not okay to just start talking to people you don't know. And I started walking up to strangers on the street and just asking them about their lives. It was the beginning of my all-consuming side project, NOLAbeings, which, inspired by the very popular Humans of New York, shares a photo and a story each day from someone I meet on the street in New Orleans. And I was kind of raised to be afraid of strangers. I think many of us are. You know, we're told, don't talk to strangers, don't eat their candy, definitely don't get in their windowless vans. and so, you know, I never really learned a good socially acceptable way to talk with those people outside of my obvious social circles, beyond a basic hello or like a heartfelt observation about the weather. And so NOLAbeings was kind of my excuse to break that fear down and explore it a little bit. And I'll show you some images of some of the people I met. Hopefully the guys in the back can transition them for me. Thank you. Over the last year, I've interviewed over 400 people across almost every neighborhood in the city. I've heard thousands of stories. And something that started as a small pet project has blossomed into something that many people now follow and enjoy, maybe even some of you. And so the whole thing has brought about a lot of reflection and questions for me. So today I'm just going to tell you one story of someone I met from the project, and then I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So I want to tell you about Dale. This is Dale. I met Dale because I was driving through the Upper Ninth Ward of New Orleans, and it was like right before a thunderstorm, you know, so the sky got super dark and intense, and that kind of light is like primo for photographers. So I like swerved my car over to the side of the road, and I grabbed my camera and I jumped out. And I was walking around some seemingly empty block, you know, taking pictures of palm trees and those kind of romantic overgrown homes and potholes, when I heard a voice. And the voice said, "Hey, when are you going to take my picture?" And so I kind of chuckled and walked over, and I said, "I'll take your picture, sure." And I told the man about NOLAbeings, and he listened to me, and then he took his sunflower seeds and handed them over to his friend, and he stood up and he said, "All right, let's do it." And so I snapped a few pictures of Dale, and I interviewed him, and for 5 or 10 minutes, he told me about how he's seen his community change. And then when I turned my recorder off, he said, "Come on, let's take a walk. I want to show you something." And that was the beginning of what would become an hour-long tour of the neighborhood as Dale sees it. So here are some things you might not get from the picture. Dale wears perfectly white tennis shoes. He worked for the Sewage and Water Board for decades, and now he takes early morning bike rides with neighbors he's known since he was 11. Dale's a natural historian, so as we were walking through his neighborhood, he started pointing at structures and sort of unraveling their histories, an old abandoned building that used to be the florist, the various childhood homes he grew up in, all in the same neighborhood, the high school he went to, and the old sewing factory where his sister had worked, now trendy artist lofts in the Bywater. And then at one point, Dale stopped and pointed to the corner, and he said, "This is where my son was killed." And he told me a story that wasn't wild or dramatic, just honest and matter of fact. And as we continued walking, we talked about crime and we talked about family values, and just about everyone we passed greeted us. So Dale told me small stories about each one of them. And the reason that I want to share this example with you is because Dale physically toured me through his world and made visible to me things I would have never been able to see on my own. He transformed this abandoned, seemingly anonymous space of streets and houses into a whole ecosystem of people and memories, struggles and successes and opinions and ideas. And not everyone I talk to through NOLAbeings is like that. But I do think that each person who opens up to me does offer me some glimpse of their world in their own way. And that moves me. And that, it makes me feel that my understanding of this city is rooted in something more nuanced and complex than it was before. So, what would our city look like if we all took more walks with strangers? Even just metaphorical walks, like on the bus or in the waiting room or in class. I'd like to think that in some small way, NOLAbeings is inspiring other people to do that, but I have some concerns. So I want to share two of them now. My first concern is that projects like Humans of New York and NOLAbeings might be fooling you. Because while they feature people like Dale, they ultimately are really just archives of the photographer's own experiences. And my experiences are shaped largely by a whole lot of genetic luck. Some combination of my age, race, gender, family values, family upbringing, make people see me as approachable and friendly and not threatening. Nobody crosses the street to avoid me. And so despite the diversity of people that we see on these projects, they're ultimately inevitably colored in a single lens, hidden as I may be behind the camera. And then the second fear I want to bring up is that I worry that these projects that share stories through social media might just be a new form of voyeurism, might just be an easy way to feel that we're connecting while we sit on the toilet and flip through our cell phones and look at pictures, a way to conveniently tuck humanity back into our pocket as we walk out into the world of strangers anonymously. What is it? What are the forces that keep us from expanding our circles? And how can we each in our own ways break those down and ask more questions of the people around us? How can we shift the focus from just consuming stories to actually participating in the greater ecosystems? I have a lot of questions, and I don't have the answers because I think we all know that they're different for each of us. Somebody I just met coming in here said, "I want to work for Uber." And I was like, great, you'll meet a lot of strangers that way. But I will leave you with this. I'm really excited that Dale and I continue to hang out, and I'm really honored that he helped me with this talk. And that's because he said a few words to me on the street one day, and I said a few words back, and we took a walk. Sometimes a small initiation, a hello, or a who dat, or even a glance, is enough to start a dialogue. And luckily for us, we live in a city where people use those initiations all the time. It's built into the culture here. And you all just stared a stranger in the eye for 10 long, awkward seconds. And I think that's a pretty bold start. So as we move into the break, why not go find your stranger, take a walk, and continue the conversation? Thank you.